Everything in the created world speaks. Everything God made carries a message. He told us in Scripture that even the heavens declare His glory and the skies proclaim His handiwork. But He didn't stop there. He designed animals, plants, and even the elements to be messengers. And if you are spiritually alert, you will not miss the warnings God places in your environment, especially when dark forces are moving. Animals are not just part of nature, they are part of creation's communication system. They are tuned to spiritual frequency. What you ignore as just a coincidence may be heaven's way of sounding the alarm. And when witchcraft is near, real witchcraft, creation begins to stir. Animals begin to act strangely because their instincts are uncorrupted. They don't second guess like humans. They sense shifts in the invisible realm. The first sign you must never overlook is when you begin to see an unusual number of crows or ravens around your home or workplace. These birds are not ordinary in their activity. In ancient times, and even in modern witchcraft, they are used as watchers and messengers in the spirit. If you find them gathering unusually near your window or perching constantly near your house, especially if they are vocal or aggressive, your spirit must awaken. They often show up when rituals have been done nearby or when a curse is being enforced. They are not evil in themselves, but they are drawn to spiritual residue. Secondly, when black cats begin to appear repeatedly, especially at night, especially staring or following you, you must ask yourself, why now? While many dismiss this as superstition, the reality is that many occult practitioners have long used cats, especially black ones, in rituals, sacrifices, and spirit communication. Spirits can travel through animals, and if a witch is using astral projection or demonic surveillance, you may find a feline face peering through your window, watching your every move. That is not natural. That is a warning. Another powerful sign is the constant howling of dogs at midnight, especially when there's no visible cause. Dogs have a divine ability to sense unclean spirits. When dogs begin to howl in chorus or bark at corners, walls, or nothing visible, it is often because they are detecting something your physical eyes cannot see. If this happens repeatedly at the same time each night, it may indicate a portal nearby or a spirit passing through the area. Don't rebuke the dog, rebuke the spirit. And then there's the sudden appearance of snakes, not just in the wilderness, but around your home, your car, or your path. Snakes are ancient symbols of deception, manipulation, and poison. In many cultures, witches use serpents in their work, and spirits can appear in snake form in dreams or visions. If snakes are showing up uninvited in places they shouldn't be, and doing so repeatedly, you must realize something has shifted in the spirit realm around you. Bats are another creature to take seriously. The bat is associated with darkness, caves, and the night, places where visibility is low and confusion reigns. In spiritual warfare, bats often represent spirits of confusion, mental attacks, and psychic disturbance. If you begin seeing bats flying over your roof at night, especially circling repeatedly or perching nearby, it could be a sign that spiritual interference is being projected toward your mind or your household. And what about owls? Owls are majestic but mysterious birds. They see in the dark. They symbolize hidden knowledge. But in occult practices, owls are associated with sorcery and nocturnal observation. If you begin to hear the cry of an owl often or see them lingering near your home or in your path, it's a sign to increase your spiritual vigilance. There may be watchers operating against you. Remember, not everything that flies at night is innocent. One of the most alarming signs is when you find dead animals, particularly chickens, goats, or birds, near your property, on your doorstep, or in a place you often pass. This is rarely a coincidence. Witches and occultists use blood rituals to strengthen their spells, and animals are often the medium. If you see sacrificed animals near your vicinity, someone is trying to tamper with your life in the spirit. That's not the time to be silent. That's the time to stand in prayer, declare your authority, and shut down every altar speaking against you. These animal signs are not to create fear, but to awaken discernment. God placed Adam in the garden and gave him authority over every creature. not just to name them, but to understand their purpose. Your authority in Christ gives you the right to dominate, not to be dominated. So when the creatures begin to act strange, ask the Spirit of God to open your eyes. Ask Him what is happening in your spiritual environment. The animals may be warning you. Don't wait for the attack to manifest before you respond. Respond in the Spirit when the signs first appear. Because when animals begin to speak, the wise don't ignore them. The wise prepare. The wise intercede. The wise declare, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." Because though the witch may try to speak, the blood of Jesus speaks louder. There is a realm beyond what the natural eye can see. And in that realm, battles are fought, assignments are issued, and agendas are activated. Witchcraft is not always performed with broomsticks and bubbling cauldrons. It is often subtle, strategic, and spiritual. And before its effects show up in your health, finances, relationships, or emotions, nature begins to whisper. But only those tuned to the frequency of discernment will hear it. Even insects can be used as a sign. Have you ever considered the sudden infestation of flies in a clean environment? Or bees swarming aggressively around your home without cause? In the Bible, flies were associated with Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, a demonic principality. When flies begin to gather in places where there is no decay, it could signify spiritual contamination or demonic presence trying to hover. When witchcraft is active, it draws spiritual parasites. Just like decay attracts flies, curses attract these dark agents. Some people notice frogs showing up at their doorstep or windowsill. Frogs, biblically, were part of the plagues of Egypt and are symbolic of demonic speech, counterfeit prophecy, and unclean spirits that imitate divine operations. If frogs keep appearing in places they shouldn't be, especially if you live in a region where this is not normal, pay attention. There may be a voice trying to counterfeit God's voice in your life. Witchcraft doesn't just attack with rituals, it mimics truth to deceive you. You may also encounter repetitive appearances of certain animals in your dreams. Animals in dreams are symbolic, but when those animals carry a dark tone, chase you, bite you, or observe you from a distance, it's often not just a random dream. It's an indicator of spiritual warfare. If a person sees animals like black dogs, vultures, snakes, spiders, or shadowy creatures repeatedly in the night while sleeping, that's not just the mind wandering. It's your spirit alerting you to a battle in the unseen realm. You must not dismiss these experiences. What you call odd may be prophetic. What you label as creepy may actually be a coded message from God. If a snake slithers across your path at the moment you're about to step into a new level, take note. If crows circle your home after a specific argument in your family, discern the connection. If a dead bird shows up at your gate after you've received a breakthrough, understand the message. Nothing in the spirit world is random, and if animals can sense what's around you, you must be bold enough to confront it. The goal of the enemy is to desensitize you, to make you think that what you are seeing is just nature being nature. But remember this, creation groans, creation responds, creation obeys. And when witchcraft is trying to operate, creation does not keep quiet. Animals were present when Jesus was born. They can sense when something divine is happening. And likewise, they sense when something dark tries to enter your atmosphere. But when the believer is unaware, the enemy has the advantage. That is why discernment must be your weapon. You don't just need prayer, you need prophetic perception. You don't just need to rebuke, you need to recognize. Because what you don't recognize, you won't resist. And what you won't resist will remain. Animals may be the first warning sign, but they should not be the last line of defense. Your authority must be activated the moment you see the pattern. When crows perch and won't leave, speak. When dogs bark at empty air, pray. When owls hover over your home, fast. When snakes cross your threshold, anoint. When bats circle your ceiling, declare. When you dream of spiders crawling on your body, get up and intercede. When a chicken's blood is spilled at your gate, cancel. When nature groans, you must respond, because nature is not blind to spiritual warfare, and neither should you be. When your environment starts acting strange, your spirit must go on high alert. Witchcraft does not announce itself with banners. It creeps in through atmospheres, shifts in energy, subtle distortions of peace. That's why God gives us signs, not to scare us, but to prepare us. He uses what's around us to stir what's within us. If birds stop singing when you walk outside, if your pet begins to act afraid in one particular room, if animals refuse to go near a certain spot, these are not to be brushed off. These are early warnings in the spirit. Sometimes, the enemy sends spirits to dwell in corners, closetries, or objects, and the animals are often the first to pick it up. A dog will growl at what you cannot see. A cat will stare at a figure you think is not there. Even livestock will suddenly become restless or ill when demonic energy is nearby. Don't take the peace of your animals for granted. When they are disturbed, take spiritual inventory of your space. Ask yourself, who visited recently? What was spoken over this house? What items have entered my environment? There are places where spiritual contamination lingers. Old objects, inherited furniture, gifts from people whose hands are unclean. If an animal refuses to enter a certain room, that room may carry residue from a ritual, a curse, or a demonic assignment. You must not only pray over yourself, but also over your home, over your yard, over your bed, over your roof. Demons don't always knock on doors. Sometimes they ride on the backs of symbols, on the wings of words, or hide in shadows waiting for legal entry. And when animals sense it, they react. There's also another level, the manipulation of animals themselves by those who practice the occult. In deep witchcraft, practitioners can project their spirit into animals through astral travel or demonic partnerships. They can send animals to spy, to intimidate, or even to deliver curses. In some traditions, these are called familiars. If an animal appears to follow you everywhere you go, watching you with unnatural focus, showing up in your dreams and in real life, you may not be dealing with an animal at all. You may be dealing with a spirit in disguise. Now hear this clearly, not every animal encounter is demonic, but when patterns form, when unusual behavior repeats, when the timing of these manifestations aligns with emotional turmoil, spiritual oppression, or relational breakdown, you must interpret spiritually. That bird didn't just crash into your window. It could be a barrier was struck in the spirit. That dead lizard in your drawer isn't just biology. It could be a symbol of decay sent to your environment. That eerie howl at midnight isn't just wildlife. It could be a sound echoing from a dark altar being activated. The key is not fear, but spiritual readiness. God did not leave his children ignorant of the enemy's devices. He said, "My people perish for lack of knowledge, not lack of faith." And spiritual knowledge includes recognizing divine signals, discerning strange behavior, interpreting environmental changes, and understanding that everything natural has a supernatural root. Your prayer life must evolve to include observation. You cannot keep praying in ignorance while ignoring the evidence around you. When animals start signaling the heavens are speaking, creation is warning something is moving in the dark. And the only way to push back is to confront it in the spirit, with authority, with fire, and with truth. Witchcraft doesn't back down because you cry. It backs down because you know who you are, but you won't know what to fight unless you first discern the signs. And the animals are sounding the alarm. There are territories where witchcraft thrives because the people living there have been conditioned to tolerate it. They explain away what they should be rebuking. They pet what they should be casting out. And while they sleep, altars burn in their neighborhoods. While they laugh, dark covenants are being renewed under trees and rivers. But the animals, oh, they know. The roosters crow at midnight. The dogs howl without pause. The birds disappear. The air grows heavy. But those with no discernment stay numb to the shift. Spiritual warfare demands attention. It requires that you be both watchman and warrior. If you're always waiting for a prophet to confirm what your spirit is already sensing, then you've missed your training. God wants you to grow to a level where you discern without needing confirmation. That's why he put you in an environment that speaks. But if you keep silencing your instincts, if you keep ignoring divine interruptions, then the enemy will continue operating unchecked. This is not superstition, this is revelation. The enemy would love for you to believe that these things are foolish, that noticing patterns in nature is too deep or too spooky. But the ancient world understood what the modern church often forgets, that God speaks through patterns, through symbols, through signs, and so does the enemy. The reason witches use animals in their rituals is because animals respond to spiritual commands. The realm of the spirit has a language, and creation understands it. You must reclaim your dominion. The first assignment God gave man was not to pray in tongues. It was to take dominion over every living thing that moves on the earth. That includes animals, that includes atmospheres, that includes spiritual entities hiding in animal form. You are not called to be afraid of signs. You are called to interpret them, respond to them, and use them as triggers for spiritual warfare. Sometimes the breakthrough you're praying for is being blocked by an altar erected just a few feet from your house. You don't even know it, but the vultures circling overhead do. The goats that keep escaping your neighbor's fence to show up on your porch do. The spiders building webs in the same corner every week do. The owls that call out just when you start praying, they are not random. These things are trying to tell you something is not right here. Pay attention. And yet, most people go on scrolling, watching, sleeping, unaware that their delay is not natural. Their depression is not just emotional. Their confusion is not just mental. There are spiritual forces trying to bind, delay, and destroy. And before the sword of the Spirit is ever lifted, the signs appear in the natural. God sends the warning first. He always does. He is merciful like that. He will allow the dog to bark. He will allow the crow to circle. He will allow the cat to hiss, the bat to flutter, the insects to swarm, all so you can get up and fight before the full storm comes. And when creation calls, don't just hear with your ears, hear with your spirit. Because there's a realm where your natural senses won't help you. The eyes of your body can't see a curse, but your spiritual discernment can feel it before it manifests. The ears of your flesh won't pick up a whisper from a witch's altar, but your spirit will tremble when the atmosphere shifts. And the moment animals begin behaving in ways that stir your curiosity, that's not the time to scroll. It's the time to seek. This is how those with spiritual maturity operate. They read their environment like a book, and every sound, every pattern, every presence is a letter in a divine message. If something is hovering in the realm of the unseen, those sensitive to God's Spirit don't wait for confirmation, they act. Because they know that darkness always looks for open doors, and the most subtle door is ignorance. Now hear this, spiritual warfare is not always loud. Sometimes it walks on soft paws. Sometimes it flies silently in the night. Sometimes it perches on your roof and waits. And while the untrained soul says, it's just a bird, the discerning spirit says, what is the spirit behind this movement? You must begin to ask, what is the message behind the motion? What is the sound behind the silence? What is the spirit behind the shadow? When a person begins to mature spiritually, they don't just pray in response to problems. They pray in response to patterns. They understand that breakthrough isn't in reacting to what has already attacked, but in intercepting what is trying to enter. That's why God trains you to notice when the bats gather, when the frogs croak out of season, when the dogs bark at empty space. These are the whispers of the spirit realm trying to alert you. But if you're too entertained, too distracted, too carnal, too bound to routine, you will miss it. You will blame everything on nature while the spirit realm has already moved into your space. But those with insight move before the serpent strikes. They pray before the sickness appears. They declare before the delay is deployed. because they understand something powerful. The enemy only sneaks when he knows you are asleep. That is why Jesus said, watch and pray. Not just pray. What do you see? What's happening in the trees at night? What sounds do you hear in your yard after midnight? Why do the birds avoid your window now? Why is there always a moth on your ceiling after a spiritual dream? Why is there a sudden surge of dead insects in the corner of the house after a powerful worship session? These are not foolish observations. They are prophetic intelligence. And those who laugh at this are usually the first to fall victim to what they cannot see. But not you. Because your eyes are being opened. Your discernment is being sharpened. Your authority is rising. You are no longer a victim of spiritual ambush. You are becoming a watchman, a warrior, and a voice that interrupts the agenda of darkness. Because once your eyes open, they can never close the same way again. You begin to live with spiritual precision. You don't dismiss signs. You decode them. You don't run from warfare, you rise in authority. Because now you understand that the animals are not your enemy. They are often the last honest voices in a spiritually polluted environment. They respond to the truth of what's present, not the deception of what's hidden. You must begin to consecrate your territory. Walk your ground. Speak over your property. Declare that no unclean spirit, no dark entity, no monitoring force will rest or dwell where you reside. The animals may alert you, but it's your responsibility to act. You are not just a tenant in your house, you are a spiritual gatekeeper. And if witchcraft has tried to settle near your gates, God will send nature to knock, but you must open the door in the spirit and drive it out. When you see that same crow every morning at the same hour, perched in the same place, don't call it normal. When a serpent slithers through your path the moment you declare a fast, don't call it nature. When birds suddenly die without explanation, when pets fall sick repeatedly, when every living thing seems disturbed except for you, it's time to ask, what have I missed? What is trying to invade? And hear this, silence is not safety. Just because the night is quiet doesn't mean it's clean. Just because you don't feel fear doesn't mean the attack isn't forming. The enemy is subtle. Witchcraft doesn't come howling through the front door. It creeps in with familiarity. And while you entertain it as a season or a coincidence, it builds altars, forms alliances, and sends signals into the atmosphere. But those who are rooted in truth and awake in the Spirit won't allow it. This is where your training turns into action. You begin to use the word not just to quote, but to confront. You anoint your doors not just because it's tradition, but because you understand portals. You pray over your water, not out of fear, but out of knowledge that everything physical has a spiritual echo. You begin to decree over the skies above your home, over the trees in your yard, over the corners of your land. And as you speak, you displace. As you declare, you dismantle. As you pray, you push darkness out and call light in. This is the posture of those who are not casual about their calling. They don't wait for attack. They don't react to evil. They live proactive, protected, and positioned. Because they know creation only cries out when something unseen is drawing near. And when the creatures begin to act, the children of the kingdom must rise. Because rising is not just about shouting in prayer. It's about shifting in posture. It's about stepping into your priestly assignment over your home, over your family, over your atmosphere. It's about commanding your territory the way heaven intended, with boldness, with holiness, and with a clear understanding that nothing has the right to dwell where covenant has been established. When animals start behaving in patterns, you must step into protocol. Protocol means you don't just say a quick prayer and move on. Protocol means you seek the Spirit of God for instruction. Should you fast? Should you anoint? Should you renounce something? Should you destroy an object? Should you shut a gate that's been opened through words, through bitterness, through fear, through ignorance? There are times when animals pick up what you've tolerated. You may have gotten used to a spiritual heaviness, but the birds didn't. You may have normalized late-night dread, but your dog still paces and growls at the wall. You may have stopped fighting in the spirit because your mind is tired, but the cat still stares at something you refuse to confront. These are mercy alarms. They are God's way of saying, wake up, my child. Something is breathing near you that I never sent. And now you have a choice. Do you close the blinds and sleep it off, or do you get up and walk your house like a soldier? Do you quote Psalm 91 and roll over? Or do you declare it like a sword drawn from your mouth? This is what separates the passive from the powerful, the casual observer from the covenant enforcer. Because spiritual warfare doesn't stop for comfort, and darkness doesn't back off because you're tired. You must teach your children too. Don't raise them to be unaware. If your child says they saw something in the room, listen. If the child says the dog barked at the closet again, investigate. If the toddler keeps pointing to the ceiling and saying someone is there, pray. Don't silence their discernment because of your spiritual laziness. What you ignore today may grow into warfare tomorrow, and what the animals are sensing may be the Spirit's final warning before manifestation. Begin to cleanse your environment. Walk the perimeter. Pray at the corners. Speak in the Spirit over the soil beneath your feet. Declare your dominion over everything that breathes, moves, or dwells near your threshold. Say with authority, this house is marked. This land is covered. This atmosphere belongs to God. No witch, no spell, no animal used as a vessel, no demonic agent, no whispering shadow, no hovering spirit has any legal right here. You are the authority. You are the ambassador. You are the voice the atmosphere has been waiting for. When you speak, something shifts. When you declare, something is uprooted. When you fast, something breaks. When you anoint, something flees. The witchcraft can no longer hide when light begins to rule. So I say to you, no longer live blind in a world where everything around you is speaking. Wake up your discernment. Sharpen your perception. Tune your ears to the frequency of the Spirit. Because when the animals begin to act, when nature begins to tremble, when the shadows stir and the air grows thick, it's not just coincidence, it's a call to arms. The crows are not just flying, they are circling. The cats are not just watching, they are observing. The dogs are not just barking, they are warning. And if creation can sense that darkness is near, then you, as a child of the Most High God, must do more than sense. You must respond. Take back your territory, cleanse your home, dismantle the altars, burn the gateways, break the legal rights, command the winds, purge the air, speak to the creatures, and let the heavens know this house is covered, this life is sealed, this family is untouchable, this ground is holy. Because witchcraft may send a message through nature, but heaven sends a warrior through you. And when you rise, everything the enemy built in secret begins to fall in public. When you open your mouth, every demonic assignment begins to scatter. When you stand your ground, even the animals will rest. Again, because the spirit realm has recognized, a true gatekeeper has awakened. Let the watchmen arise. Let the altars fall. Let the light take its rightful place. Witchcraft has been exposed, and it has no authority here. Navar, genze paramedus mitu, lebus ime chene. Ask ChatGPT.